Hello, everyone, and a very good day, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. I am Divya Mohan, and this is an episode that's been in the works for a while. And I'm very excited about it, primarily because we're going to talk about something we've been doing behind the scenes for quite a while, and you've probably seen social media posts about, the summit and the conference in Berlin that's upcoming and co-located with our annual customer and partner conference. The conference that I'm talking about is the Berlin Community Summit, and I actually was very thrilled when I heard that this was being organized, and I I was like, this needs to be something we do an episode about, and know more about, because it's the first ever time we are hosting a conference of this type, and we really would like to know if there's interest around such conferences being held, and if you'd like to show up and share your knowledge. So of course I'm not like the know all do all see all sort of a person here, so I'm gonna invite one of my colleagues here who's on the organizing committee and has been investing a significant amount of blood, sweat, and tears into this process. So the person here is Doug. And hi, Doug. Nice to have you on this live stream finally. And I'm really glad we get to do this today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to discuss the summit. So, would you like me to tell you a little bit about it, or how would
I
you
would
like
first
to?
probably want you to introduce yourself, because I don't do a great job of, introducing people. So I normally hand it over to the folks who are coming on to interview on this podcast to actually talk about themselves first. And then, yes, we do want the meaty details of the conference. So, how about you tell us what you do at SUSA?
Yeah,
And
sure.
other than that, yeah.
So I'm Douglas De Maio. I've been with SUSE for almost 10 years now. Primarily doing a lot of stuff with the Open SUSE project, also with different communities within SUSE itself over the years. And we've had plenty of projects associated with SUSE, and so I've been heavily involved with each of those. I've been running the events for Open SUSE, and also like when you get into the community atmosphere, community events, and specifically when I'm talking about community, I'm talking about the uh, sort of the free availability of conferences that are out there from various projects that are not sort of tied to, you'll say, enterprise or anything like that. So that's my involvement with SUSE and the things that I do for it. I also serve on the Open SUSE board, and that's just the governance for the project of Open SUSE itself. Um, I've been running the Open SUSE conference for the past, it's got to be almost 8 years, maybe 8 or 9. Um,
Wow.
and so this summit in general. So a little bit about that. The Berlin Summit, Berlin Community Summit, is an association, of course, with SUSECON. This is actually um, started long ago, and traditionally it's been associated with SUSECON events that were in the Americas. This is actually the first one that's going to be tied in with SUSECON as a summit in Europe. Uh,
Wow.
so so that's nice. The previous one we had was in Nashville, and that was 2019. And we did have one. Actually, we did have one planned for Dublin, but obviously the world kind of changed at that moment. uh,
Absolutely. So
but
I have
yeah,
a question about what you just said, right? You've been on with organizing these summits since quite some time. 8 years is quite some time, I guess. Um, and you've organized these in the Americas, and this is the first one that you're organizing in Europe. I'm very curious as to what are the major differences that you've seen with respect to organization, and what Are there any different challenges when you're seeing when you're organizing it in Europe and as compared to doing so in America?
I wouldn't say that it's that much difference in the challenges. Usually, it's sort of getting the venue. Of course, you got to tie in and coordinate with the team with Sousa, and so that relationship's always been strong. And I have a good network there within Sousa and can reach out anytime. So they've been helpful with that. And it's just a matter of connecting with the right pieces. And so when you look at the rooms, you look at the sort of the logistical aspects that are needed as part of a summit, um, it's not much different. Then when we get down to the planning and the sort of the submissions of the talks or CFPs that would open up, I mean that's just a traditional process we go through. We do it every year, of course, with the Open SUSE conference. Also, multiple other conferences that we've kind of been involved with. We actually have the Open SUSE Asia Summit call for papers actually just opened up
Yep.
today. So we have I have a bit of experience with that, also with the community, because it's not just me. There are tons of people that are involved in this and participating, and those that submitted talks, I highly appreciate it. We do have a very good cast, very good, yeah, a very good schedule plan. So I think people will really enjoy the different talks. When we look at, we'll say, the conference itself, like what is it and why, sorry, the summit, what is it and what is it there, and how helpful is it for, we'll say, the people that are attending, or even Susan in general, right? So basically it's geared for Sousa, Rancher, or other projects associated with Sousa, and that being partners, enthusiasts, contributors, as well as like stakeholders. So you can get multiple different people at this summit, and you do see that quite often. I remember the one we had in Nashville. It was really interesting because they were talking about running GPUs with some of the operating systems, and it was nice to see, and you could kind of see where things were going. And now, of course, we getting into the whole use of that with AI and things like that. And so there's even a talk submitted by a friend of mine who actually used to do exactly what I did for SUSE, and when OpenSUSE started, and he'll be talking about AI ethics. So kind of cool. You get a variety of different discussions that take place there, and it could deal with technical discussions. It could deal with things in the open source environment that you'd look at, um, whether it be getting down to ethics standards, or what's sort of like where's the entire industry perhaps shifting toward. We had that with Kubernetes back then, um, and of course looking into Rancher as well. I mean these things take place. And so it's very nice just to see that. And we also have, well, there'll be 5 OpenSUSE board members that'll be at SUSECON
Wow.
in general, but I know of 4 that will definitely be at the summit and also giving talks there. So we get various partners that'll be giving talks there. Get new projects coming along where you get there's a one. It's about the Midori browser, and it's from Astian, and so they'll be there talking about it. That's also, if you look at that particular aspect, right, that talk will be given at this summit, but not everyone that is at the summit will be able to make it to the OpenSUSE conference.
Yep.
So this talk will also be at the OpenSUSE conference, and that's sort of I think that's sort of an important thing. It's just it happened to match up a week apart from one another. We have the SUSECON happening, and in mid June, well, midish June, and
Mhm.
then OpenSUSE conference happening. That's like what, maybe 400 kilometers away to the south, happening like a week afterwards. So it was just random. It kind of wasn't really planned that way. But we know that not everyone can be at one or the other, and so that's nice to actually see that some people were able to stay and actually able to give talks. I know we have some partners with AWS that are there that are giving talks about various open source projects such as Pegger or something like that, and how that could work with AWS, the CLI working on that. So, um, yeah. Are there other questions that you would want to go over?
Oh, yeah, I do. I have plenty of questions for you, Doug. So you're not getting away anytime soon. Just letting
Okay.
you know. So another question that I have is, are there any specific things that you look out for when you're curating the schedule? Like, I know that since this is tied to SUSECON, and maybe a lot of the SUSECON folks, existing SUSECON folks, are the ones who are attending, and it's co-located, so it's easier for folks who are attending SUSECON to attend. That's obviously there. But are there any particular things you look out for when talking, when narrowing down the CFPs? Maybe should it have like a SUSA or an open SUSA or a rancher affiliation, or is it necessary that there should be some mention of the projects that we work on, or is it mostly more related to the wider open source ecosystem in general?
Well, it's mostly toward the wider open source environment in general. Um, Berlin is actually a big hub for a lot of open source development, and also advocates for that, along with within the EU. So there's plenty of people that I have relationships with that live there, and I imagine they will show up. I know a few will, for sure. But when you look at planning some of these talks, like how do you do it? Um, at least with this talk, I have to look at some of the talks that perhaps are scheduled with SUSECON, right? So like
Yeah.
I have to deconflict because some people there are also there to give a talk, and they'll also give a talk at the summit on something completely different. So there's that aspect. On a traditional sense, like planning a conference, you're trying to make some things that don't conflict, be scheduled together, and that being meaning of interest. So you get into the different tracks, and sometimes you want to keep some tracks flowing, keep some people together, and then of course break that up, allow them to go and have some just side chats or whatnot to actually establish that network, or build relationships there. So that is definitely one part of it. But there again, there are quite a few things to think about with the planning. And overall, at least with this one, I tried to. There's a couple people that have multiple talks, but I did try to give them a break, of course, between a talk, because you don't want to. Not everyone wants to give a back-to-back talk,
Sure.
but some do.
Yeah. So, and given that this is in Berlin, and this is my first time, by the way, coming to Berlin. And we're going to shift gears a little bit, because I assume that there'll be a lot of folks who have no idea about stuff that's very specific to Berlin. And if they are attendees who are not from Berlin or Germany or even Europe and are trying to attend the conference, what are some of the things to keep in mind when attending? What can they sort of expect?
Um, well, Berlin has a rich history, and a lot of people that have been there. Um, you could say in the 20s even, where it was a place to go for actors and things like that. So you get a lot of history from that aspect, and a lot of people from multicultural, for sure, coming in there, which is great. And then there's things that we all come from different places, and we all have different experiences. Like one of the things is, again, is like the subway. It is quite interesting. I was in France a couple weeks ago, or in Paris, where you get a ticket, and then you have to go through you have to scan that ticket, and then you have to go through some doors to actually get on the subway. Well, it's something you'll see in Germany a lot, where you basically just go buy your ticket, and then you literally go and get on the train. You may have stop you. They call this here in Germany be controlliert, so they're just controlled, and just asking you for your ticket. Now you could do that via app on your phone, or you can go to a machine, and of course you'll have multiple languages to purchase that ticket in. So that's one of the things. Public transportation, you can get anywhere you really need to go. I won't be taking public transportation, but I know plenty of people that will be. At least, I'm sorry, from where I'm going, because I'm actually coming from a little bit more south, up to
Right.
Berlin. But it is, you can get around very easily without a vehicle, getting flying into the airport, and getting to your place within an hour or so, I would say, is pretty normal.
Right. And are there, again, I am a very picky person when it comes to food. I've been told that a lot of times. Um, but that's also because of my dietary restrictions that I have. So, what is like, I'm very excited when I go to new places to try new foods that are like in line with my dietary preferences. But for people who are enthusiasts about food, and I know that um, we both know people who are. So, are there any suggestions that you have regarding the foods that they should try, or that they should definitely try when they come to Berlin? Because it has a rich vegan and vegetarian culture that I know of. But are there any specific food items that you think is should be on everyone's must try list?
Well, a currywurst tends to be something at least traditionally associated with Berlin. So that's where it was founded or established, or it was basically in the early '50s is when it happened. That restaurant actually is no longer open, but it was started there. So from that perspective, you get some sort of wurst with a ketchup and a curry sauce, and maybe a dash of Worcestershire or whatnot. But there is multiple places to definitely get food at, and different. I've been there and had Mexican food. I actually looked to see there's a bunch of Vietnamese places around, as well as a few Indian
Yep.
places. I mean, there's variety, and the people there are going to be doing some traditional dishes. I myself I like a Laos's dish. It's called a lap gai, and this is just tends to be served in Thai restaurants a lot. But you can find these various dishes anywhere throughout the city, because there are so many different cultures that live there. So um, and then let's see. So stores, you'll probably get some self checkouts. That's actually fairly new, at least in my city, which is relatively small. We're getting some of that there, and yeah, there could be, and I'm not entirely sure because it's been a while since I've been in Berlin using public transportation, but there could be a sort of a electronic where you could use your smartphone or something like that to pay for a ticket when you get on the train. I'm not exactly sure. I will tell you the Uber thing, though, that is quite unique in Germany. Um, so Uber, you're not going to find in most parts of Germany. You just won't find it. It's just the way that things are done. But
Okay.
yeah, it's dealt with at the city level, and they provide so many, um, what would you call them, Genehmigungen, so many like licenses to actually transport people, and so this tends to be controlled very much in Germany. But in Berlin, and I believe in Munich, you can actually use. That's just sort of the exception.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm learning new things about Uber everywhere I travel, um, because I never realized that there's a discrepancy in the way it works across. Like, I mean, I know that certain providers work in certain places, and in certain places they don't. But I sort of thought like Ubering was the global standard of transportation. for some reason, but clearly not the way it is, and that's absolutely fine. I think I had like very similar experiences, just very recently in Vietnam as well as in France. So I think that's it's not an anomaly, but it's something that's an eye opener when you actually visit other places, that this is not the way the entire world functions. So it's like a whole shift in the way you view things. But again, coming back to things that you can find around the hotel, I believe that before we got on the live, you were mentioning that there's not a lot of stuff around the hotel that you could do, but there's like it's very sparsely there, but not exactly lot of stuff to actually eat or catch a quick bite from.
Yeah, the it looks like, I mean, just looking at the restaurants that are around there and having spoken a little bit to the venue itself, you're going to have to walk quite a distance. I mean, not quite a distance, but you have a good 10 minute walk for sure to get to I think the closest place, and then that's then anything beyond that, you have to look a little bit further. So from that perspective, I know that they have a restaurant at the venue. And then my understanding too is that I know that we will have some snacks for the summit at least, that we've provided. So fresh fruit. So you can join us and definitely come and get some fruit. Uh, so, but then yeah, I mean, I think it looks like the subway stops are nearby, and I think like going into inner city, which you tend to see that, of course, with conferences a lot. People will stay at the venue, but then they'll like venture to go, let's go into town, or
Yep.
to a location. And so it looks like you could get into, we'll say, um, um, down to the Brandenburger Tour or something like that, or where a lot of things that traditionally you look at in Berlin, sort of Checkpoint Charlie or the Ziegelsäule. That's probably like a half an hour on the train, or on the Straßenbahn, or subway. But it goes relatively quick.
Right. And I mean, we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to ask, but there's still a few questions left. One of them being, are we like, this is one of the first ones that we have in Europe, and hopefully this is the first of many more to come. But at the risk of sounding like, I'm trying to pressurize you on the live stream, do we have something planned for next year? You
Well,
don't
I
need
would
to tell
say
me, by the way, just letting you know. But do we have something planned for next year?
so I would say at the moment, no, there was no plan, but as these things get announced, and I of course will be in touch with the organizers of SUSECON, that I'm sure we will have one, especially if well, even if it's in Europe or if it goes somewhere else. I would think that we would continue to have this because people do find value in this. And I know last year when we had SUSECON in Munich, it was brought up, oh, where's the summit at? Why aren't we having it? And so it was rather, um, you know, SUSECON last year kind of happened fairly quickly, so it wasn't so much longevity for us to actually do a summit. But next year, yes, I would imagine we would have this as well.
And at again the risk of sounding like a person who's trying to bring more things into Asia, because I know that there's an Open Source Summit in Asia. Do we have any plans anywhere in the future to kind of bring it for our Asian contributors? I know SUSECON never gets held here, but I'm manifesting it. This is how manifestation works, according to me. But is are there any plans to at any time bring it to Asia?
So yeah, so if people go to, I'll just put this address up here. It's like no problem, I can do it. So if people go to news.opensusa.org, they'll actually see the OpenSUSE Asia Summit. They're having a logo contest. This is um, traditionally like something that the OpenSUSE Asia Summit has done for the years. So there's some information about that. It's going to be held in Tokyo, Japan this year.
Yeah.
And then the call for papers is open. There, you know, I've been to a few. I know I'm going to this one for sure. Um, but it's really been all over. I know that we've had it twice in Indonesia, I think twice in China, once in Taiwan. This would be twice in Japan, and I know the ones that we did have planned for India um, were. So we basically had two of those, but one was an online. That was a year that we ended up all going into lockdown. Shall we
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
But that was we've had that. So I do encourage people who aren't able to make it to Europe or to the Americas or whatnot to look at the OpenSUSE Asia Summit, because there's a really core group of people, and you tie in with them, and I mean you'll really learn a lot from them. And I know that also I know we have a person that's going to be at the summit who plans on going to there as well, and he just gives talks about security. So I mean, like, it's a good group, and we all kind of know each other for the years. I was just looking at a picture. So there's going to be another talk, and I was asked to find a picture for her talk, and I looked at the picture, and it was made in 2011, and you're looking at the people,
Oh my
and you're
God.
like, wow, how times flied. And I actually work with one of the people. I spotted him out, and I sent him a picture. I was like, hadn't seen, had never seen you so young. but but yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
And it would be a lot of fun to actually work alongside such a stellar group of people. And I hope folks who can't make it to Europe and the other North American conferences actually do get the opportunity to come here, because traditionally not a lot of conferences get held here, especially ones at such scale, and for open source. So it'd be great to have something for the Asian audience as well. Last but not the least, I'm gonna ask you a very stupid question, although I know the answer to this. Registrations are still open, yes?
For the summit, yes, and for the conference. Actually, we run registration up to that last day. Actually, even throughout the conference. I mean, it is when we look at community summits, and when we look at like the OpenSUSE conference, OpenSUSE Asia Summit. I mean, the intent really is for people to come and be a part of it, and literally you find someone talking in a cafe or whatever, and before you go, and you're like, oh yeah, you can come, like, if they're into tech. I mean, we're not limiting any sort of thing. We want people to come and learn and be a part of the community. So yeah.
And where do we register? I know that it's event.opensource.org. Can we like have that banner up here? I guess we can.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah, you
okay.
can. Oh, sorry. News. And yeah, but events, if you go there, you'll actually see the three events that are there right now up. And if you ever go there, um, usually there's probably a couple months period where you probably won't see any things listed, but there's a history portion, so you could go back and look at all the conferences and summits that we've had over the years.
Yeah, and that sounds like the next action item that a lot of people who would want to attend this conference should put on their lists, I guess. So I guess we're on the end of the time that I actually requested you for. So I'm not gonna keep you waiting any longer. Thank you so much for coming on and for discussing the conference with us. I am really looking forward to it. primarily because I've never been to either conference, nor the conference nor the summit. By the way, this is my first SUSECON and my first summit, so I'm really looking forward to both of them, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person too, Doug.
Likewise.
So
I'll
with
bring you.
that,
I'll bring you a little plushie.
oh, thank you so much. That'd be
Yeah.
so great. But thank you everyone who tuned in, and thank you so much for listening into the conversation. Please do visit events.opensource.org for registering for the community summit, and we hope to see you there in Berlin. If you have any questions, I guess route them to Doug because he is the mastermind behind this. So please feel free to route all questions to him. And thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in another episode. Bye, folks.
Bye.